Alright, so this is how to optimize your your extra deck. How to optimize your extra deck. Because you only got like 15 slots. You can only fill it up with so much, and some decks are a little extra heavy because you need multiple copies of certain cards in order to, make a certain deck function. In case you're playing Quantum, you might want to have 2 Magus, 2 Magna Leo, 2 Ouroboros, and 2 Grand Pulse. So you might want to have 2 of each. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, which leaves you with 7 slots left. So then you have to try to fill in those 7 slots with alternative. If you decide to do 3, 3, 3, right? That's 3 times 4. That's 12, which only leaves you with 3 slots for anything extra. So optimizing extra deck is pretty crucial. So the way I like to optimize my extra deck is either using cards that have dual purpose, that they serve more than one purpose, more than one use, or they have multiple functions, and also the possibility of being able to optimize the extra deck. For example, to optimize the extra deck, the Goose or Emerald. This will allow me to recycle any extra deck monster I have, whether it be Fusion, Synchro, Exceed, whatever. I could even recycle Pendulums, but that's not an extra deck thing, but you get the idea. The fact that I can detach material from this card, target 3 monsters in my graveyard, and shuffle them back into my deck and draw a card. Drawing a card is always good. Essentially, it's a pot of avarice, right? There's another card that has a similar effect. Pot of Ducati, I think it is. You get the idea. Anyway, this will allow me to reuse 3 XYZs or Synchros or Fusions, depending on the extra deck. So just this card alone will allow me to essentially optimize my extra deck space. Instead of having 2 Sky Blasters, maybe 2 Sky Blasters, 2 101s, and maybe 1 Rhapsody Berserk or something like that, I can just go with 1, 1, and 1. Right? So that way I only need 1, because once I use up all 3, and if I need another 101 later on in the game, I could just use the Goose or Emerald and recycle my 101, my Sky Blaster, my Rhapsody and Berserk, and then I have access to these again later on in the game. So that's how I can optimize my extra deck. So instead of my extra deck consisting of like 5 XYZs, because I have having 5 XYZs, because I have 2 101s, 2 Sky Blasters, and 1 Rhapsody and Berserk. Instead of having them taking up 5 slots, I can take up just 3 slots with 1 copy each, throw in Emerald, so that's 4 slots being taken up instead of the 5, which leaves room for 1 more. For example, Mega Beast Grand Pulse. That makes space there. Also, same goes for Grand Space. Now Grand Space gets the benefit of being optimized, because if I need it again, I can always Emerald it and get it again. Another way to increase it, essentially make it infinite, per se, I like to do sometimes, if I have the space for it, I can throw in another Emerald. Not only do I maximize, I essentially make it infinite. So I have infinite optimization, right? Infinite optimization. Because I will use, let's say, a 101, then a Sky Blaster, and let's say, Rhapsody and Berserk. I use all 3 of them. I summon an Emerald, recycle all 3 of those. That Emerald gets defeated. That's alright. I just go into my other 101, my other Sky Blaster, use them up, and then if they end up in the grave with emerald, so now I have 3 XYZs, right? I use my second emerald to recycle those 3, and now see I have an emerald again, and my extra deck is full again, and then I just keep that in a loop, and there you go, infinite. Well, infinite-ish, right? Because you still have to be able to exceed summon. Another way to do this without emerald, let's take that out, without emerald, is using cards in the extra deck to optimize your extra deck. Stuff in the main deck to optimize your extra deck. Like YUGIOH, you can use 3, you can use 1, however way you want to use it. Same goes Monster Reincarnation, you can use 1, you can use 2. YUGIOH is a lot more powerful. Plus, it's hard to stop YUGIOH unless they have like Vanity Emptiness or something, right? But it's hard to stop YUGIOH from optimizing your extra deck, from putting everything back into your deck that is monster based, because it's returning everything. It's a cost, it's a condition of his summoning or his effect, whichever one you call it. Since it's a cost, even if he gets warning, things of that nature, black horn of heaven, whatever, everything still went back. So unlike Monster Reincarnation, where one, you have to discard a card, and then the fact that somebody can counter it, can negate it, you won't be able to put anything back into your extra deck that you might have essentially really needed in order to make a comeback, right? But either way, these 2 cards are pretty good. Monster Reincarnation is not as strong as YUGIOH, but hey, you might not have enough space to add extra monsters, or whatever reason it is, or you just want to keep the deck simple. You might want to use Monster Reincarnation. I like using it because it lets me recycle my extra deck, but I can also recycle anything from my main deck and reuse them. So that's another way to optimize your extra deck, so you can have more space, because you're trying to get the most bang for your buck, right? You want to get the most out of your extra deck. Even effects, like let's say you have your extra deck consists of Stardust and Colossal Fighter, right? You use Stardust to help you protect your spells and traps, to protect against destruction effects. But then you have Colossal Fighter for defense, for in case your opponent has a pretty big strong monster and you want to defend against, block against, right? Well, these are taking up 2 slots, having a defense from battle card and a defense from destruction effects card, right? So they're taking up 2 spaces. What you can do is take those out, obviously, right? And I put in Stardust Spark. That's something I like to do sometimes, where it's like when the extra deck's a little tight, either I can't fit these 2, even though I would like to fit them. If I can't fit them, then I go for Stardust Spark. Or sometimes I choose which one I feel that I would need the most. Sometimes I tend to choose defense over now, and since I tend to main deck red screen, that's my staple defense, I tend to choose Stardust, because Stardust protects red screen protects Stardust, and all is good, right? So, but if I'm in a scenario where I don't have red screen, because maybe my deck is monster heavy, then yeah, Colossal Fighter would be an option. But Stardust Sparks is just as good. I tend to use them a lot more, but you never know. It's between Colossal Fighter and Stardust Spark in that scenario. But as you can see, I was able to optimize the extra deck by using Stardust Spark to replace both Colossal Fighter and Stardust Dragon, because Stardust Spark serves dual purpose. Once per turn, you can prevent destruction of a card, including battle. So he can use his effect to prevent his own destruction. You trigger as soon as your opponent enters battle, targeting Start a Spark, and then when your opponent attacks, Start a Spark will survive that destruction. And there you go. Now you have a defense. But you also still have the ability that if you need to, you can protect red screen or protect something else that's of importance, right? To each their own. So that's how you can optimize the extra deck. Another thing is you might want something that can dual purpose. Hot red is pretty good. It can wipe out a lot of monsters at once, especially if you defended or your opponent just pendulum summoned a whole bunch of monsters, attacked it, dealt you a lot of damage, but you still have a little bit of life left, and you're able to make a comeback. You can make hot red, wipe out their monsters, and attack them, and hopefully that's enough for game, right? So that makes it a very good, usable card. But depending on the situations, you would choose what best suits you. If your weakness is your opponent swarming, obviously this would be the best choice. If the scenario is, when you're dueling, it's your opponent's back row, or sometimes they get a good monster that you can't beat over, so you need something against it. But sometimes it's just a trap or a spell or something of that nature, something other than a monster. Scrap Dragon's really good against that because it can destroy anything as long as you destroy something of your own. So you might choose to use Scrap Dragon instead of Hot Red, right? So boom, you're optimizing, making extra space, right? Because you're using Scrap Dragon over Hot Red because of the situation, because he's multi-purpose. He can destroy anything on the field. But let's say you can't make 8. you can't even make either one of those two, right? Sometimes you can make 8, so that's why you only have 1 spark, right? But typically you can make 7, all right? So then Rose takes the spot. Black Rose immediately replaces both Scrap Dragon and Hot Red with ease. Boom, there you go. So you're optimizing your extra deck. You're just getting rid of a whole bunch of stuff all at once. Instead of filling your extra deck with, these extra 4 monsters that have good effects, if we were to add them right now, right? How much would that be? Right now we're already be at 11. If we kept all that stuff, or if we took out these 2, we'll be at 9. We can knock it down. If we take out, we take out those 4 instead of playing those 4. Play Rose and Start or Spark. Boom, there you go. Now we're down to 7. So we just freed up 2 extra slots that we can use to optimize, right? And in some ways, you can use. Sometimes you have to choose between one effect versus the other one. Do you want to let your opponent, do some crazy stuff like combos and stuff, and get stuff in the graveyard, and then use Rhapsody Berserk and get rid of it, or do you want to stop them from doing that stuff? Then you got to choose between Abyss Dweller or Rhapsody Berserk. I typically don't have a problem with most decks doing what the deck's meant to do. If Shadal's this and third, if they send stuff to grave, they send stuff to the grave. I'm not interested in trying to stop them, like trying to make their plays. I let them make their plays. I try to defend, of course, but I let them make their play. Then I respond to that, I react to that. I make a comeback, right? So then I would rather use Rhapsody and Berserk. Because I'm going to let them get off their effects. Let them do their thing. Let them have their turn. And then when it's my turn, then I'll hurt them. I'll cripple their resources and whatnot, right? Bring out Rhapsody and Berserk. Banish, like I said, I was, Shadal. Let's say Shadal's, get rid of that. Banish their spell card, their Shadal fusion. Banish that. Banish some, a Shadal monster or something, just so they have less monsters to recycle, to bring back with Falco's effect and this and that. You get the idea. Some cards are really, really good in some cases. Obviously, Abyss Dweller is really, really good, stronger than Rhapsody and Berserk. if you're trying to go more defensive, if you want to go more defensive, more anti-meta per se, Abyss Dweller would be a better choice. If you're trying to be more passive aggressive, basically you're trying to be like, alright, you did your thing, it was awesome, that's cool off, my turn, let me show you what I can do, then, you know, I prefer Rhapsody and Berserk. Yeah, but to each his own. And then of course the fact that I can equip it to one of my XYZ monsters and make them stronger so I can, you know, win is always good. But again, it's to each their own. It's all about optimizing. But typically you probably will want the Abyss Dweller because, you know, it's really good competitively. You can shut down a good amount of decks with that. So the fact that you even have it, you don't have to worry too much about certain things in your main deck. Like, don't have to worry about main decking stuff. And that's another thing. If you main deck a lot of hate towards graveyard decks, then yeah, you don't need that. It's more optimal for you to just play Rhapsody and Berserk, because if you have cards that, like Shadow in Prison, for example, so if your opponent, you know, Shaddolls or Burning Abyss go to graveyard, their effects will get negated anyway. So you don't need Abyss Dweller. You know, Rhapsody and Berserk will be just as good, especially if your opponent has like some type of mixture. In case they mix the deck up with something else, you can, you know, kind of banish the extra materials. Especially if you have like Shadow Imprisoning. Shadow Imprisoning is already doing its job. You want to use this, but there's also the scenario you might want to just minimize your opponent's ability to make a comeback, especially if they MST your Shadow Imprisoning. Then that makes everything they can play, you know, active again. So you might want to clean out the graveyard. So Rhapsody and Berserk. This, that, and third. Exoton Knight is a really good card for optimizing, right? Because it essentially does what Black Rose does, you know, so it can clear the field. So clearing the field in one shot is definitely optimal, but because it's currently banned, it is not on this list, obviously. But it's just an honorable mention. But at least we still have Black Rose, so we'll make do, right? Some effects are a little bit better than others, as you can see the whole Rhapsody and Berserk Abyss Dweller thing. In case you're interested in something that can destroy anything on the field or back row, a good replacement for Exoton is Diamond Direwolf. Not the best replacement, but it's a good replacement nonetheless. You know, it's better than nothing. Alright? In case you need something to replace Exoton Knight, I would recommend that. Or you can just throw in an Emerald, right? Moving on. Sky Blaster. Pretty good card. You know, it can get rid of any card that's face up, whether it be spell, trap, or monster, which is really, really good. And it can attack in the turn, which it does that effect, so that's always good. But if you can make Chidori, if you have the ability to use level 4s, wind type monsters in your deck, Chidori would be a better choice. It's more optimal, right? Because not only can it do somewhat what Sky Blaster does, it has the added ability that when it's summoned, you can target one set card your opponent controls and return it to the bottom of your opponent's deck. So that extra thing makes it optimal, you know? Just by summoning it, you get an optimal effect. You get something extra. Then when you detach, and then once per turn, you can detach a material from this card to target one face-up card your opponent controls and return it to the top of their deck. So you can see a secondary ability is similar to Sky Blaster in a way. And then it has the added ability of targeting a face-down card and putting an opponent on the bottom of your opponent's deck. You know, and if you recycle that effect over and over again, you know, using Emerald, you can slow your opponent down tremendously, but also annoy them. And right there, that'd be optimal. In case you know, are playing rank 3s, optimizing, of course, sometimes means not just taking 2 cards away from the extra deck to put 1 card. Sometimes it's just replacing a card altogether, just replacing, just a 1-for-1, right? Replacing something. So, other card, pretty good, 1800 attack, right? Has the ability where you can detach material, target one set card your opponent controls and destroy it. It's pretty good. I mean, it's good that it takes care of set monsters as well, so that is pretty versatile. But if the whole real goal was to get rid of spells and traps, which is typically what I use them for, then something more optimal would be an 1800 attacker with 2800 defense, which is really nice, right? 2800 defense that has the ability to MST, you know what I mean? To let you detach the target one spell or trap card on the field and destroy it. But it, it's to each their own. It's about preferences. I mean, there are some slight issues with Grand Pulse because of the possibility that somebody can electric virus it and use it against you. So that's something you might have to worry about. Somebody can summon Cyber Dragon, do the Command Attack Fortress thing. I mean, those things could happen. I take that into consideration, but a lot of times it's not even that big of a deal. Sometimes you could just get away with that, right? But I do like, the fact that it can once per turn destroy one spell or trap, and the fact that you use 2 materials to make this. Like you could use this in Burning Abyss or any other deck that does rank 3s, and right there you got a nice little back row hit right there. Plus it's a nice 2000 defense, good for stalling, and 1800 ain't that bad, so it's a decent beater, right? It's decent enough. Let's see, that's about it, right? The only extra thing to optimize your extra deck that I suggest is a side deck. You can, if you're the type of player that likes to side deck, you play competitively, you have access to a side deck, right? Your Konami allows you to use one, so you could put extra deck monsters in your side deck, so that way you can swap out, and do like I did here. You might want the Hot Red and the Colossal Fighter in the deck, and then take out the Black Rose and the Stardust Spark, and throw in the Scrap Dragon or whatever, and just Abyss Dweller, and there you go, and just do what you want. Throw that in there, throw Diamond Dar. Let's throw Black Rose back in there, and Chidori. I could pretty much put all this in there. There you go. I just used my side deck, and now I just optimize my extra deck. Now I got all these options, all this potential, and with the Goose Emerald, I can recycle most of them. Well, let's say I can't do Chidori, put in another Emerald, bang, there you go. Now I have essentially infinite extra deck. You know what I mean? And that's the end of the video.